What are some useless scary facts? Your body produces a cancerous cell about once every 30 minutes. Your immune system is usually very efficient at finding and immediately neutralizing them. But it's very possible that 30 minutes from now will be the time your immune system slips up and allows it to reproduce. You can have a heart attack and die at any second because of a heart problem you never knew about. There's one called Brugada syndrome which has no physical evidence and most people aren't diagnosed with it until they drop down dead and testing is done on immediate family members. It's genetic, and one of them is diagnosed with it. Happened to my father. We found out because I'm the one tested who has it. My uncle and brother got the all clear. Chances are my granddad has it too. 4 heart attacks since he was in his mid-40s. By you winning the lottery you increase your chances of being murdered by a family member or any other person close to you. Not exactly useless, but there have been quite a few men who have died at the Grand Canyon because they thought it would be cool to take piss over a ledge, only to lose their balance. An aneurysm can happen at any time to anyone for any reason. When people are crucified, they rarely die from bleeding out. Instead, they die from asphyxiation or suffocation. The way their bodies are hung makes it almost impossible to breathe unless they physically hold themselves up instead of just hanging there, and after so many hours it gets to be too much, resulting in oxygen deprivation, unconsciousness, and death. You've probably walked past a murderer. Edit. Thank you for telling me your personal stories, they were really interesting to read. There is a theory in quantum cosmology. It is the hypothesis that our universe is actually a false vacuum, meaning that it isn't in its most stable possible configuration. Think of a ball rolling on a surface having several local minima, dents in the surface, but there is only one global minima, the dent which is the deepest. The ball may be in one of the dents which is not the deepest one, so it is stable for now, but given the chance it will slide to the deepest dent, which is the lowest energy configuration possible, the so-called true vacuum. Now the interesting part, if our universe is, indeed, in a false vacuum, due to something called quantum tunneling, it may tunnel into the true vacuum, creating a bubble of lower energy. Once this lower energy bubble is formed, it expands, engulfing the entire universe, destroying everything we know as is, and creating new laws of physics. The speed of expanding is the speed of light, so we would have no information whatsoever about it before it hits us. We will literally never see it coming. The really scary and really useless part, there is absolutely nothing we can do about it. Bed bugs can survive for up to a year without feeding under the correct temperatures. As adults, the females can lay 300 eggs in their lifetimes. You could be spending thousands of dollars and eventually just get infested again. And bed bugs are making a comeback after almost being eradicated. You have only about 6 minutes of life left. Every time you inhale, you reset that clock. Pumpkins equals berries. I'm sorry Redditors, but it had to come to this. Edit. For anyone who doesn't believe me, here is the link to the Wikipedia page which has a larger list of botanic berries. Botany. Stay strong if your known world is unraveling. The probability dying due to accident while riding a bike is more than while flying in a plane. Big fin squids. Also 95% of the ocean hasn't been properly explored, so who knows what could be down there. There is a planet in the solar system populated entirely by robots. Years ago I saw an episode of Monsters Inside Me where this guy was doing something outside and a fly flew into his eye. It only made contact for about a microsecond, but it was enough time for it to lay eggs. After they hatched they started eating his eye from the inside and he was starting to go blind until a doctor figured out what was wrong. Ever since then I get super paranoid whenever a fly goes anywhere near my face because of the scary fact that something like this could possibly happen to me. There is a guy in the world who died from the most minor injury, and somehow, this half-bothered comment is the one that turns out to have thousands of upvotes. Most laugh tracks were recorded in the 1950s. You are hearing dead people laugh. Lake Superior has dead bodies from the 1920s. With freezing temperatures and a lack of oxygen, bodies don't decompose at the rate they would under normal conditions. Sure, They don't look as fresh as the day they died. In fact, they're covered in bodily fat from saponification. But they can be recognized as human remains. In fact, there's been this ongoing debate because of the ship SS Edmund Fitzgerald that sank in the 70s. Because scuba divers wanted to explore it, but the families of the deceased were upset because this is basically a mass grave. There's a YouTube channel called Ask a Mortician that just did an episode on this, and I really recommend it. She goes a lot more in depth about the facts, and even went out there to talk with a surviving Fitzgerald relative. That one day the planet Mercury will get eaten by the sun, but in the 1% chance it actually flings out of orbit, it's useless to us because we won't be around. It could potentially, mind you it's a low chance for this to happen, hit Venus or maybe even Earth and send flying particles all over the system. The reason why it would get thrown out is because Jupiter is actually tugging on it and making its orbit more elliptical and may eventually get thrown out entirely. Chiropractors kill more people per year than sharks. A church in the Czech Republic known as the Sedlec Ossuary or Church of Bones has decoration of skulls and other human bones. It is known for this church to hold remains of up to 40,000 humans. Goblin sharks. That's it. If you're murdered, there's a very high chance you knew your killer. When someone dies, the last thing the dying person senses is the sense of hearing. Then touch, smell, and taste. The first sense that is usually gone is sight. Pooping can kill you because of a major nerve that is involved in the heart. There's a skeleton inside of you right now, and it's wet. Your kitchen sink has more bacteria per square inch than your toilet seat. Human assholes can stretch out to 7 inches without tearing, and a raccoon can fit in a hole as tight as 4 inches. You're welcome. It is currently believed that all quantum fields in the universe have reached their vacuum state, but we're not actually sure about the Higgs boson field. If the Higgs boson is actually in a false vacuum, then at any time, that field might collapse. To the layman, that event would lead to 3 things. All laws of chemistry are changed or undone. The standard model of physics is wrong. A sphere of expanding energy centered on the source of the collapse would radiate throughout the universe, destroying all matter in its way into infinity. All because one quantum field might not be at its lowest energy level like we think it should be. Whenever you walk near a mountain, there is a small chance that a falling boulder instantly crushes you to death. Komodo dragons poison their victims and then follow them for hours on end. Then once the victim is thoroughly exhausted and poisoned, it tears it to shreds and eats it alive. Some of your friends might just pretend to like you because you are useful to them and you don't realize it because they are just great at hiding it. There are sometimes some creep could watch you sleep or shower and you may not know. Your body can kill itself just to get rid of a foreign organism. Scientists don't know what matter is like inside neutron stars, but some theorize it's a kind of strange matter that, if it exists, may turn everything it touches into strange matter. If 2 neutron stars collide, which does happen, microscopic strange matter particles could fly through space until they eventually reach Earth, at which point the planet and everything on it would turn into strange matter and be destroyed. Alright, I collected some of my favorite scary facts from an app I really like called Thunder Dungeon. They have all types of memes and facts and stuff, so it was all written in pictures. I had to manually write them down. 1. There's an episode of Sesame Street that had to be pulled off the air in 76 feet cause it was so scary. Parents complained their children are screaming in horror at the TV. 2. There's a disease nicknamed Ondine's Curse, which causes sufferers to die if they fall asleep. 3. On the 26th of August 1968, every TV in America shut down for 25 seconds. There was a murmuring sound coming from the TV and people reported hearing a demon. 4. In 1994, a man was arrested for dressing as the Grim Reaper and standing outside old people's homes. 5. It only takes about 7 pounds of pressure to rip off an ear. 6. There is an island in Italy that is supposedly so haunted that the government forbids the public from visiting it. 7. There's a syndrome called Charles Bonnet syndrome that have been called a window into a parallel universe. People who has it are prone to seeing bright lights, weird shapes and scary faces. The thing about this syndrome is that all those who suffer from it are almost exclusively blind or vision impaired. 8. When a bear attacks you, he will most likely start eating you alive rather than killing you first. 9. At any possible moment, Earth could be hit by a gamma ray burst which will extinguish most if not all life on the planet. 10. A woman in St. Louis was watching a TV documentary about a serial killer who tortured and killed women. When she realized she was living in his former apartment. 11. There's a caterpillar so poisonous, just brushing your finger onto it can cause internal bleeding in your brain. 12. In 1942, a man known as the Phantom Barber would break into people's house while they were sleeping to steal a lock from their hair. He was never identified. 13. There's a fish called a stonefish. It's so venomous that if you step on it you could die in 20 minutes. 14. According to a recent study, 1 in 5 CEOs demonstrated psychopathic traits. Another population with similar proportions of psychopaths is the prison population. 15. There was a guy from New York who owned a car with the license plate 5V1732. He died on the 17th of May, 1932. That's all folks. Edit. Fact number 3. The time of the shutdown was 25 seconds, not minutes. The possibility of conscious anesthesia paralysis. You are slowly dying upon reading this comment. Kiwis and pineapples eat your mouth. Just because you're dead doesn't mean you immediately stop perceiving stimulations around you. It takes a bit for your brain to die of oxygen deprivation and shut down. So there's a good chance that when you die that you're trapped in your body realizing you're dead with no way to stop it. This fact has been semi-confirmed by people who experience temporary death in hospitals and recall nurses and doctors rushing around them trying to revive them. You may already be dying. Many fatal diseases have no symptoms until it's too late. You're welcome. There are some parts of the universe that we'll never, ever be able to see. No matter what we do, they'll always remain just out of reach. Edit. I never had this much upvotes. Thanks to everyone. Stephen King's net worth is estimated to be roughly $400 million. Someone you love will probably get dementia, and it will ducking suck. The human brain is a machine, and like any machine it inevitably breaks down. Imagine a person you love. Imagine their mind starts dying before their body. They cease to be the person you knew. A little bit at a time. They lose their memories, the cherished and the mundane. Then they start looking at their loved ones in terror because nothing makes sense and everyone seems like a stranger. It's nature at its most cruel. Duck dementia. I don't know how useless this is, but you are never 100% safe. Think about it. No matter what scenario you put yourself in, there will always be some sort of countermeasure. Let's say you built a concrete room that is 10 inches wide with no doors and windows underground. An earthquake could happen. A sinkhole could open up. A ravine could open up, etc. No matter how safe a situation sounds, it can never be 100% safe. Edit. However, it is good at making people paranoid though. There have been 32 reported broken arrow incidents in the USA since 1950, many more in former Soviet countries and other nuclear powers. A broken arrow incident is basically an accident where they lost a nuclear weapon. Edit. Apparently losing a weapon is called an empty quiver incident. You never stop watching with your eyes, even when you close them. Another one. This topic will be dead in few days. In a couple of billion years the sun will expand rapidly and consume the earth. There is nothing we can do to stop this. A good portion of spiders shed their exoskeletons occasionally, so when you happen to come across a dead spider, there's a good chance that it's just an empty husk and there is another, slightly bigger spider nearby. You can jump without a parachute only once. Every website that you had visited is recorded in someone's computer. The Andromeda Galaxy getting closer at 430,000 kilometers per hour, but it will hit the Milky Way in 4 billion years, and anyway, the stars are so distant from each other that just a few of them will be destroyed. Bacteria will eat you after you die. Alternative, you will be lit on fire. How much do you know about your great grandparents? Because in 50-100 years, That will be how much the world knows about you. Edit. For those of you stating that information storage and accessibility will allow everyone to easily look back into the past, I challenge you to run a game designed for Windows 95. Point being, information storage is not a ubiquitous system, and as the architecture of software and hardware changes, there is certainly a possibility that some systems will require specialized tools and equipment to access. Furthermore, social media is the highlight reel of history, not the story. Very few people show their true selves in their Twitter or Facebook feed. Also a number. Dogs love squeaky toys cause it reminds them of a dying prey animal. Edit. For more information. The squeaks activate a predatory instinct in them, and that's why they ruthlessly attack them. According to some research, a human head may remain conscious for up to 30 seconds after decapitation. Most notably, a man named Dr. Borux did a series of experiments in the early 1900s where he yelled at recently decapitated criminals' heads and saw a response. Every year you pass your death day, but you don't know when it is. A Boeing 747 once exploded mid-air. Why am I reading these? I already have crippling anxiety, depression and paranoia. The stronger the gravitational field, the longer time is. This said, black holes have the strongest gravitational pull in existence, and as it pulls you apart atom by atom, time will slow down the closer you get. Because of this, near the center your pain will be limitless and time will practically stop around you as you feel this pain. Just for your information, you have walked past someone who was spending their last day alive. Coconuts kill more people than sharks kill people every year. You know nobody fully. You only see the sides they choose to show you. The only person you really, truly know is you. And even then, there's your subconscious. There are 5 letters in the word scary. Have you ever heard of a light fastness? Well, do you know all of those crayons, pencils, and marker drawings you made as a child? They are all faded now. Light fastness is a property of a color and such as dye or pigment that describes how resistant to fading it is when exposed to light. A lot do out of art supplies are very not light fast and will fade. Everything fades away and dies someday, even you. Edit. I mean that if it's exposed to light, the sun and artificial, and the air, it's going to fade, but if it's protected and in a dark place, it won't fade as much. The Paris Climate Accord relies on technologies that do not yet exist, and might never exist, to pull carbon dioxide from the air by future generations. If we reach the Paris Climate Accord goals, including using technologies that do not exist yet, there is at least an 50% chance of staying under the predicted catastrophic temperature rise, literally coin flipping humanity. Why is this a useless scary fact? Because there literally is jack it you can do about it in our current societies. Beyond voting, you can have a heart muscle disease and never know it, and possibly die. True story. My dad had a cardiac arrest last November. He's 49 years old, because apparently he has a heart muscle disease. Never showed any signs. Works out regularly. Relatively young. And he almost died out of nothing. Epstein didn't kill himself. According to some accounts, during the height of the Watergate scandal, Nixon said to someone in a fit of frustration, "I can go in my office and pick up a telephone, and in 25 minutes, millions of people will be dead." A standard uranium fission reactor loses a significant portion of its energy of fission as neutrino, not to be confused with neutron, radiation that is not stopped by shielding. In fact, the entire Earth is unlikely to stop a neutrino. But that's nothing. You are being bombarded with even more neutrino radiation from the sun, day and night. Night too, because, again, the entire thickness of the Earth does not effectively stop neutrinos. However, the thing is, neutrinos are insubstantial ghost particles. They pass through anything without having any effect whatsoever except in very rare cases. They are phenomenally difficult to detect, because they almost never interact with a detector, even the best designs we can think of. You are more likely to find a dead body under your bed than in your garage. Not really scary, but it is useless. The average amount of eyes that a human has is less than 2. Every breath you've ever taken has particles of blood in it, albeit incredibly small, and they won't affect you in any way but still there. With enough stresses you can trigger a psychotic episode and never be mentally healthy again. The sun could have exploded 8 minutes ago and we wouldn't know about it. Not really a scary fact, but if you blink, your eyes will eventually basically die. You're now blinking manually. The notorious serial killer, cannibal, and sex fiend, Jeffrey Dahmer, who killed at least 17 young men and boys, was likely driven to his homicidal urges after suffering brain damage due to a lack of oxygen during a relatively routine surgery to repair a hernia at the age of 4. Pretty much everyone who knew him said he was a happy and outgoing child until that surgery, and then he became emotionally subdued and distant. Many serial killers and mass shooters, and violent repeat offenders in general, have a history of brain damage or head injury, suggesting possible brain damage. You have almost a 90% chance of breaking a rib by giving effective CPR. Catfish have more taste buds than humans, so they would be much better at cooking food if they were as evolutionarily advanced as mankind. I think it is scary because I imagine just a yellow catfish screaming raw and Gordon Ramsay becoming a nobody. You've probably talked to a future serial killer. Just the ocean. I love seafood, but damn WTF is with it in there? And also, whatever sickness happens when you rise to the surface too fast or when equipment fails when you're really far down. Dr. Frazier Crane was once punched in the face by a man now dead. For me, it's the fact that you can go crazy at any point, and even worse, you could have already lost it and you'd have a great chance of never finding out, making it virtually impossible to stop the trip downwards. The amount of force used to bite a baby carrot in half is as much force as you need to bite your finger in half. Edit, or at least partially sever it. For those of you getting super worked up about this, geez. Well, billionaires seriously don't give a duck about regular folks, and they run the world. I still think it's scary and there's nothing I can do about it. From the moment you are conceived, you start dying. Chances of experiencing terrorism are crazy low, but a friend of mine called in sick to work on the 22nd of March 2016. He works in Zaventem, Brussels, airport at the desk next to the American Airlines one. Terrorist blew himself up there that day. Friend would have been there if not for a mild stomach flu. He was investigated afterwards in case his absence meant he knew something was going to happen.